So, good afternoon, GIS World. My name is Chris George. I am the administrator for the GIS division in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We were the territorial GIS platform for this region, and it's an exciting day today. We're here with our friends and family of URISA, and we're celebrating exemplary systems in government today. We were the past winners in 2021 with a distinguished system for enterprise level. So we're here today with Dan Giersz from the Cuyahoga County in Ohio with their distinguished system for their Fiscal GIS hub. And we're excited to hear more about that and getting some questions, getting to the weeds, and for myself personally, seeing what else I can steal from good old Dan and incorporate here in the territory to get better efficient in what we're doing. So thank you, URISA, for this opportunity. I want to thank Dan for his time, and then we'll turn it over to Dan to give us some great details about this big winner, Enterprise Systems for 2024. Thank you. Turn it over to you, Dan.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dan Giersz, Cuyahoga County. I've been with the county about 14 years now, and we are happy to be here to present. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get right into it. All right. Appraisals, incentives, and disbursements. One Fiscal GIS hub. You'll see the date was in, I originally put the story together in June of last year because we were lucky enough to present this hub at the Midwest UC. All right. So how did this hub begin? It started with our fiscal office reaching out to Tom, asking if he had heard of some random GIS software that they were looking at. So Tom quickly realized it wasn't GIS software. It was just another appraisal platform that could show shapefiles. And then he saw this as a great opportunity to educate the fiscal office on our capabilities, because we all know in the GIS world that sometimes we're undervalued and people aren't as educated about our capabilities as we want them to be. So how did we do that? Well, first, we found examples for them, right? We wanted to, you can't just talk about it, right? You got to show it. So we spent a month or so compiling examples. We're having meetings and demonstrations. You know, a big, the Franklin County tax incentives was a big influence on this. Our fiscal officer was especially happy about that. They also like the Lorain County Auditor's GIS system, that our appraisal department like that, and its ability to provide year-over-year value changes. We also partnered with Esri on this project. They were more of a safety net, kind of a guarantee to our fiscal office that this project was going to happen and that it was going to be successful. We only ended up using about a third of the budget with them. And myself and my colleague Jordan Abbott did almost all of the work for this hub. So what did we end up doing here? So I'm going to break this up into the different phases that we went through. Phase 1, data prep. Phase 2 is the EPV site, is what we refer to. Then our tax incentive site, and then our tax agency gateway. And that's a lot, right? You could almost look at this as 3 separate projects, with each project being a new section as we grew out this fiscal hub. So we started by diagramming it. You know, we needed to know who our target audience was. We needed to know where we were going to put the information. The more we talked to the fiscal department, the more we told them what we could do, the more they wanted to add. So it really turned into this giant snowball of data. Because it was so overwhelming, you know, we started using Teams. That's now our platform of choice for project management. It was very helpful to be able to organize and keep track of tasks that needed completed, and you could prioritize them and not lose track of things. Sometimes you'll think, oh, I need to update that web map, but I can't do it right now. So I'm going to quickly add a card in Teams so that I don't lose track or sight of that. All right, so the data discovery and prep. I actually enjoyed this a lot. You know, in most counties, the data's all over the place, right? We've got our CAMA system, which is the computer-aided mass appraisal. That's what our appraisal department does to record parcel characteristics. We have our MVP platform, which is mainly for tax bills, right? So that's got owner information. It's got rates and effective rates and all of that complicated stuff, right? So I worked with our DBAs and a little bit with Esri on how we wanted to format everything. We have what we refer to at the county, the warehouse, and that's every night it goes and pulls in all the CAMA data, pulls in all the MVP data, pulls in you know, some permitting data. It's just it's basically all the county data in there, right? So that we had our source, we just had to go into the warehouse, find the tables that we needed, and then write a nice long SQL script to create a view of all of that data, right? Because we always try to put as many fields as you can into one layer, right? Yeah, so that was a good month locating all that stuff into what I like to call the Voltron of parcel data, just because there were so many tables that we're pulling information from. You know, here's just a quick, you know, we have a script that runs every night to update this. It truncates a table in SQL Server, and then it runs an insert. So all of our data is getting updated I think every morning about 5 a.m. And we're doing this for a number of tables. All right, the way we have it set up is that we do an initial pull of all the data into SQL Server. And then from there, we join it to the geometries, right? And so that's what this script is an example of. You know, we pull in the parcel ID, the object ID. You know, here you gotta have a object ID when you're working in Esri. So that's how we create our unique object ID. And then this is just one of the many joins in our data here. But yeah, it takes about 15, 20 minutes to run because, you know, it's pulling all the data over from Oracle across the network. Then it's truncating tables, it's repopulating tables. But luckily it's all automated. We don't have to worry about it. So we came up with these 4 new data sets. After we got everything together, we have our new tax parcels we call our EPV parcels. Again, the underlying data updates nightly. We created some sales points and we update those every month after our appraisers verify that they're valid sales. We've got our abatement and TIF information. That's quarterly, that doesn't change as much. And yeah, we found that quarterly is enough for that. And then our certified rates is just a yearly update. Every year the state has to approve our rates. And then once they do that, we push it out as a table. Some key takeaways from that data step. Do as much data manipulation as you can at the source, right? So we do all of our joins and some computation in the Oracle warehouse, and then we copy all over to SQL Server. It's just, you know, more efficient that way. Also, SQL's awesome. It's a lot easier to use in, you know, SQL Management Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, or even in SQL Developer for Oracle. It can be your friend if it's intimidating, but once you get the hang of it, you'll never go back. And then set up notifications. Where, you know, I get an email every morning, and if it has error codes in it, then it goes into my inbox. Otherwise, I just delete it. All right, so our phase 2 was the EPV site. This was the base deployment of Esri's equitable property value solution. Because they wanted, this was in time with our triennial appraisal. And so they were keen on getting the Sales Finder application out there. So as they're increasing people's property values, they could show them, you know, why, right? All the, you know, here are all the sales in your neighborhood. You know, this is what property is going for in your neighborhood. And so that's why we appraised your property at the price point that we did. So how do we get the sales data, right? So that is just a Jupyter notebook that runs. But basically, I've got an empty file geodatabase as a schema, copies it, it brings in all the latest sales from the Oracle database. We have a parcel locator that we geocode against, and then we just append it to an ArcGIS Online hosted feature layer. So this is an example of what is the contents of that Jupyter notebook. We also deployed the floodplain locator. This was an easy one because the feds published their flood zone layer. And so we just have an app. It uses Arcade to do a simple intersect, find out if there are any flood zone polygons. And if there are, you should contact FEMA. It's an example of that. And then the final part of the EPV was our parcel evaluation and tax distribution information app. That is a mouthful. So I'm going to go ahead. So this is what you could use to view your changes in property value, as well as how your property dollars are being allocated, right? So it'll show you the current tax year, previous tax year. We're between appraisals, so there were no changes between 23 and 22. And we're actually doing our sexennial appraisal for people who are familiar with county appraisal processes. We're doing that this year. So we're excited to get bombarded with complaints. And then it shows the value. If it's positive, it is, I think, blue. And if it's negative, it just shows orange. And then here's a table of how the tax dollars are dispersed. This was also a big requirement from our fiscal office. He wanted the property owners to know that their tax dollars, it's not the county's fault that their taxes are so high, right? That we take a very small amount of that property tax bill, that most of it goes to your schools. But then you're helping your health and human services, the libraries, colleges, community college, our metro parks. We've got a nationally renowned park system up here. So they take a cut of those property taxes before the county even gets to it. So you saw the pop-up. Again, that was all done in Arcade. It checks on if the value was positive or negative to change the color. There's this table in here that breaks down all of the disbursements. There's a attribute expression that kind of builds that table. And then this is what the HTML to create that table. Actually, I lied. That is just the current value and the previous value. This is where we're building the table. If I love Arcade, I use it all the time. It's super powerful. I encourage everybody, and again, to learn it, use it. One of the things that's really nice about it is that you can create a temporary feature set, right? So that's exactly what this pop-up does. I'm building a table, on the fly, essentially, and populating it with the different composite values for the effective rates. It finds out what fund it's coming from. That's built that whole table out for you. And then you just drop everything in there in the HTML table. And then the cherry on top for this EPV, I'm not going to play this for you. It's a couple minutes long. I will share the story out afterwards, so you can just go to the hub and see it. But they put this great video together explaining, how property taxes work, things like your, effective rate, what a mill is, and what is an assessed value versus a market value, to just kind of help people familiarize themselves with the whole process. All right, so our phase 3 was the tax incentive site. This is what we kindly borrowed from Franklin County. This is all about tax incentives available, TIFs and abatements, right? So over here are all the abatement points in the county, and these are all the TIFs. You see these clusters, these are typically business districts. This one over here in North Olmsted is a mall. This one over here is, and that might be the new Sherwin Williams plant headquarters. But those are tools to spur economic development. Like I said, Franklin's award-winning site looks eerily similar to our award-winning site. Here's the landing page. I'll go into a demo afterwards and walk you through all the pieces. And then phase 4, this was the heaviest lift, right? There are 88 separate taxing authorities in the county. And each one of them, we gave their own hub site, right? Which is good, right? They used to just email out PDFs that were 300 pages because it had every single city in it, broken down by every single district's code. And we were able to condense that into just one dashboard that is filtered to whatever taxing agency you're viewing. So here's just an example of how like a city is laid out. You have your, this is what you can download your reports. I've got my windows blocking my view. It breaks down the values for the community, lists the top 50 parcels. So in conclusion, we're really happy about this. The fiscal office was very happy about it. We've gotten great feedback from, local economic development directors at the municipalities really appreciate the TIF and abatement information. The taxing authorities prefer to be able to go to one place and just see only their reports instead of reports for the entire county. And a lot of residents liked the parcel tax distribution example. They didn't always realize that, like, hey, I love the metro parks. I don't mind giving my tax dollars to them, right? They just see a bill that comes from the county and don't really think beyond that. All right, so I'm going to dive into the hub. All right, so here's the landing page. It shows our 3 separate areas. I'm going to start with our value information site, which was based on the EPV, Esri's EPV, as I said. Just some metrics about the county. I already showed you the web map with a pop-up for this parcel and tax distribution application that was built in Experience Builder. This is the video. I don't know why. It might be my internet connection. But this is where you would see the video that I mentioned earlier. And then our recent sales information. You can go in there. We're actually working on a newer version of this for this sexennial process that is a little more information, right? When we first built this, our appraisers, they were hesitant to provide too much information to people. Not really sure why. They were afraid it would cause an uptick in requests for value revision. But this year, our new government, they're much more about making data available to everybody. So we've got this new sales finder. It's about to get released, I think, next week. That has a lot. This one really, it only has the transfer date and the dollar, where the new one's going to have number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square footage, things that you can use to actually draw comparable values, right? Instead of just, oh, my neighbor sold their house. Well, their house might have, more bedrooms, more baths. It's not really relevant. The floodplain, that's pretty straightforward. So I'll save you that. Here's our incentive site. You can get tax exemptions, CAUV. I think there's only like a handful of parcels in Cuyahoga County that actually get this. I know it's bigger, more in Southern Ohio. And then these abatements. Jordan did all of this work, all of this research, got all the wording in here. He did some great work finding pictures of actual examples of enterprise zones, describing what they are. We've got links to where you can go to get the forms to fill out from the state to apply for some of these exemptions. These are the 3 different types, CRAs, EPAs, EZs, and then we throw all of that into an Experience Builder dashboard that lets you filter by community. Let's do per park. Right, so you can see where all the abatements are. Abatements, can be for anything that adds value to a property. A city might give you an abatement if you like add a deck to the, your house because it increases the property value. Or it could be abatement for a whole new development of new houses or new commercial or industrial. All right. Now here is our taxing authority site. This is what we spent most of our time on. You can see every one of the communities has a page. Every one of the schools has a page. Libraries, parks, sports authority. Here are all the, I think it's like 114 distinct tax polygons. A lot of them add and combine and overlap, forming the different tax districts. So you can, we'll check out Westlake here if this decides to load. Okay, it's not. So let's go up here, check out Berea. This was just a lot of grind it out, right? We made it one base page, we got the layout set, and then we just cloned the page inside of the hub site editor, right? And so this is, they are all using this same dashboard. It's set up to filter by that tax code. So it's only showing, values and counts and parcels that, fall within this taxing authority, right? And so now it's just a nice quick place. You can, what year you want to go to and see your valuation reports, auto registration. Mainly the big ones the cities want are these unit fund settlement reports because, that's how much money they're getting. All right. So that really is all that I have. If we want to open up the questions, I can dive in and, I can show some examples of how this stuff is set up. This is this dashboard here. It's pulling it all in from a table. It filters it by certain amounts. I thought I was doing something way cooler with this dashboard, but I don't think I am. Here's the year over year change web map that's powering that experience builder. This is the arcade expression that is building that graph, right? Creating that fun feature set. And then, grabbing all the data from the certified rate table and building out that graph. So what do you think, Chris? Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have mine. I have a set for me, and then I see
Sure.
a couple in the chat. First off, very nice hub there, Dan. Really impressive as far as the culmination of all of these data sets, especially when we're getting into the tax world and talking about incentives, getting the taxpayer excited about paying
Right.
taxes.
Right.
So there's a lot, and you guys, I really like the approach that you're taking. So I'm on our end, I'm gonna really have that discussion with our local tax assessor and a tax collector and have him go through this and maybe even give you a call and see where you could take it from there. My first thing was, what did you see as far as cost savings? Did you see a lot as far as time for appraisers or time on your staff, or how did you see the benefit of this evolution within
Yeah,
your?
so it cut down on all of the direct requests that the fiscal office was getting. People calling in, emailing, stopping at the office, and asking these questions. Where, why is my property bill so high? It's like, well, go look and see. You can view, all the agencies that are collecting taxes from you. If you want to know how much your city is bringing in, you can go to the taxing authority site and download those PDFs. They used to just email them to about 50 people, and that was it. Those are the only people that got the reports. Where now anybody can get them. Yeah.
Oh, could we go through the dashboard a little bit more too? I think that was pretty neat. And
Sure.
that would be pretty useful as far as on our end too, dealing per island or per estate on our end. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so how do I think I'm looking at this right. Theme. The big thing with here, I don't know why I'm not seeing it.
So you could have pulled by county, you clicked on the county and it brought up. Okay.
Yeah, let me over here. Go through this way. Oh, it is. Okay, this is what I was looking for. Yeah, so some of the over here, we've got URL parameters in this dashboard.
Mhm.
And so that is how it filters for each agency, right? That's why we're able to get away with just having one dashboard. So
Mhm.
when you're at the hub site, um, for any of those pages that you're on, the URL behind it has all of those parameters added to it. This is just a simple sort of the top 50 parcels by assessed value. Just pulling that from our tax table. Our pie chart's broken down by property class types. Of course, it's mainly going to be residential, but there are some exempt, commercial. This total parcels is just a count of the feature layer, essentially. And then these are all coming from the rate table that we publish every year. So that was one of the big reports they send out is what is the appraised value of your community, right? Were there any specific questions about it that
Um, so when so when you get the data from your sister agencies, is that red tape that you as the GIS division starts, or that's from the external agencies first? How, like, say, public utility, agriculture, how do they get involved in you? Do you source them, or they come to you as far as getting their information out there to the public in relation to taxes?
the that is all handled by our budget commission.
Oh, okay.
They're the ones, they deal with the state when they certify what the rates are going to be, as well as what the appraised. We send like a proposed data file to the state and they look it
Mhm.
over, make sure everything's above board, and then they certify it and they bring it back. And so then the budget commission will provide me a copy of that rate table and I publish it as a hosted table. Um, they then I just pull all of the specific parcel data
Mhm.
from that warehouse, right? So this is all, some of that parcel data I'm bringing in is the actual assessed values of the parcels that I'm pulling in from that MVP system.
Mhm.
And so I'm able to just total that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, as far as our relation to a lot of the external agencies, it's a lot of red tape that we have to deal with. You know?
Yeah, I know this public utility one is difficult because it's not real property, right? Like
Mhm.
these things,
Mhm.
these are real property. They're buildings and land. This tangible property is more of the value generated from that
Yes.
property, right? Like
Mhm.
if you've got a substation for electricity and you're billing, it's people are buying that electricity, right? And so that they're kind of taxing on that, not the actual piece of land itself. So
Mhm.
that's what this tangible personal property is.
Got you.
And
Now, how does, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say this one I actually only pull in once a year because it never changes.
Doesn't change much yet.
Yeah.
So as far as when, how do you get the changes of ownership incorporated on a timely basis?
Yeah, so that is all handled through our recorder's office.
Okay.
When a deed will get transferred, and they will put all that information into the MVP system.
Mm.
And then I've got that script that every morning at 5 a.m. it
Oh, that's
pulls
just
in the
okay.
data.
Mhm.
Yeah, I literally delete everything that's in the table and then repopulate it with all the latest information.
Okay.
Um,
So it's
and I
it's
do
real time per day.
Yep, yeah. And I did add like a date field to show when it was last updated.
Mm,
Sometimes in case it failed, I'd be able to go back and look and say, oh, this hasn't updated since, last week or something. Or if anybody had a question about, how current is the data.
got you, got you. So they have their own archival system that rolls into it as a stream, or how do you, or is it a static file that you get? How would that work?
Yeah, so that the warehouse has its own nightly routine that
Mm,
takes about 4 hours to run, where it's essentially copying all of those different databases, the whole
hmm.
CAMA database,
Wow.
the whole MVP database, and so the warehouse has hundreds of tables, and that's
Mhm.
why it takes 4 hours to run. And that warehouse is what all the other systems pull from. We have our My Place application. That's where people can go for uh, information about their properties. And just give you an example of, I click on this guy here. And so the warehouse stores all of this type of information, right? Like the land use, legal
Mm-hmm.
descriptions, addressing, and so they gave me access to the warehouse, and so now I have access to all of this information, and so now I'm pulling all of this into our parcel layer, um, which then gets used all over the place. Our planning commission just released their latest green print viewer that is pulling in our parcel service, and they're using it to look at the year commercial buildings were built, or land use type based on vacant lots, that type of stuff. So we found that new parcel layer we made it's starting to get used more and more in different applications because there's so much valuable information in it.
Yes, got you. One of the other things was um the arcade stuff. That would seem pretty interesting. Do you have, I see a question in the chat, more about the floodplains intersect?
Sure. Let me try and find that. This down here. Let's check out this attribute expression, right? Um,
Mm,
yeah, so it's just pulling in, it's just grabbing the flood layer from the map itself, which is this USA flood hazards area. I think I don't know if it's the national base map. It might just be coming from FEMA,
okay, yeah.
um, right? And so then it does a intersect. It takes the compares the parcel's geometry to the flood zone, right? So here's the parcel. Is it intersecting the flood zone? And then there's a count here. If there is a result, it lets you know, hey, you should contact FEMA. If it doesn't, it says it's not in the flood zone. I've actually been told that count isn't the best way to do this, that it's more efficient to use the first action, right? This piece of the count is a little more involved for processing versus first, it's just checking, what is the first row in the result? Is there one or isn't there one, right? So I would encourage people, if you're just checking to see if there's values in the table, use the first function instead of count. I'm not going to update that right now because this is production and I'll probably break it.
Yeah, it's running. If it works, I mean, it's working.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, so another question from Mr. Jim Hall. Have you considered only pulling in the deltas of the data on a daily basis? Sounds like your servers spend a lot of time processing updates. I guess that's for the morning updates that you're doing, you just explained about.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it only runs 15, 20 minutes. We don't think it's that bad. It's in the middle of the night. I don't have to take anything down. It just happens. And so it hasn't really been, that 20 minutes that we use up is nothing compared to the 4 hours that the other system uses. So it hasn't been an issue that we need to only pull in the changes.
Chris Smith, what is the future of the fiscal hub, or what is the evolution looking like? What's the next stage looking like?
Yeah, so that is, like I said, we've got our new sales finder coming up. I'll give you a sneak preview of that. That is
That's what we want.
Experience Builder. Go. Preview. So the first thing we did is we added a tutorial for people so they know how to use it and get the most out of it. So that was a important thing to do. But the new functionality, let's just go in and type in a random parcel. Hit enter, it's going to find it, it's going to zoom in. It's going to give some similar metrics, shows you all the sales nearby. Like I said before, this new one gives you the baths, square footage. You can, it's got the option to filter.
So that's coming straight out of the appraisal?
Yes. Yep. Every month they push out their new sales data, and then I grab it and attach it to these parcel polygons and add it to this service. So this is, the past 3+ years of sales, which is what the appraisal department uses for appraisal purposes.
Gotcha.
It also, I like this tool. It's got this statistics. Let's go ahead and do the sale amount, which I mean, that was just built right into Experience Builder. And I give you the average, do some math for you so you don't have to do it. But then you could also export it if you wanted to have a spreadsheet.
I mean, and this is that type of information goes straight to city planning,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we actually just got a request from somebody in our appraisal department asking about getting sales data by city so that they can provide it right to the communities, because they want to know who's moving into their community.
As far as, is there a level above where, as far as some of the other agencies are using it, sort of like the emergency services, your Justice Department, like for instance, your SORNA, when the SORNA list comes out, stuff like that?
Yes, absolutely. Our public safety department, they actually just recently deployed their own hub as part of our organization. So they rely on us heavily for most of their data.
Yes. Yeah, I think Ms. Chandler White said it pretty succinctly, very sick, Dan, very good. Nice. So any other questions from the chat? I don't really have anything else. Of course, I'm going to contact Dan on my side time to talk more in depth. But as far as for this gathering, do we have any other questions? Okay. So hearing none, I want to thank you, Dan, and your Cuyahoga staff for putting such a great program together. Very much added benefit to your community and utilizing GIS to improve the life for your residents in your county. That's what we're here for, and I'm glad to see that you're being celebrated for your efforts. It's well deserved.
Yeah, we're very excited about our future. We just got a new county executive, and he's a planner, and he has experience in GIS. So we're getting all kinds of interesting requests from him.
Great. Okay. So I'm sure we'll be able to get your contact information out publicly. I'm sure it will be there on the URISA site on the winners page. people could download your submission. Do you have a video out? I would think that you had a video out for.
Yeah, there was a video.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll get all that information out publicly. I'm sure it's on the URISA sites as well, their Facebook and their website. Well, thank you very much, Dan. Hearing no other questions, I'll just go into what we have left coming up for the year for URISA, and then I'll close it on out.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. So what we have coming up, this is upcoming URISA workshops. We have GIS, and the 911 workflow. Of course, this is detailing how to integrate emergency services capability within your GIS operations, your E911 system, getting your NINA standards together. All of those bits and goodies will be discussed. It's a half-day workshop, certified, and it will be presented virtually Friday, June 28th. There's the times 1 to 5 Eastern, 12 to 4 Central, 11 to 3 Mountain, 10 to 2 Pacific Standard Time, and that information can be found on the webinars page. Next is upcoming Leadership Academy programs. So we have our Leadership Academy November 18th through the 22nd in Fort Worth, Texas. And we have a virtual one December 2nd through the 6th. And then, of course, upcoming the Advanced GIS Leadership Academy will be held in Chicago. That's the 12th to the 16th of August of this year. And of course, the big one, 62nd, wow, Director, Annual Conference, the GIS Pro. This is October 7th through the 10th, 2024 in Portland, Maine this year. And all of that information can be found on the URISA website, its Facebook pages, as well as all other platforms. I want to thank all of the attendees today for coming in, all the participants, and having some active questions for Dan and his team. And congratulations, Dan, once again. And I want to thank URISA for giving a platform and opportunity to GIS folks around the country and around the Western Hemisphere, really, for them to be show their work, show what they got going on, how they're helping their community. And of course, giving them an award for it, it really doesn't feel bad either. That's something they could use when they head back home and say, look, you know, this is a big award. We need more resources. That's how I used it. So that's a very big advantage for any GIS group within the nation. So I want to thank URISA again, the good Director Nelson and her new assistants. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And then we'll close it on out. So thank you guys for attending. And that's it.